Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pete on the Street coming to you semi-live from the Charlie Crowley Sound Studio here at the wonderful TCAM TV in Taunton. And this is the second part of the rollout for my 11th season. I have a special guest host today. My boy, my man, Joel Davis, Joel Real Deal Davis, and he has a great guest. Now, I hope I don't get punished, but he is Don the Punisher Vega, professional wrestler. You the man.
Nice to meet you,
you know, I'm doing this because Mike Higgins was on my show twice. Now he's got his own TCAM show. Renee Gagne and Carrie Ann Auclair were on my show once. They had their own TCAM show. Joel, you've been on what, 5, 6 times?
I'm not sure, man. I lost count.
But I want you to consider doing your own TCAM show.
Okay, I'm still waiting for my payday, brother.
All right. Well, now listen.
Grab him.
I heard him. I heard he wants to wrestle, right?
No. I
get excited.
He doesn't want to.
That was a Pete on the Street retreat.
I thought he wanted to wrestle.
Take it easy. He's okay. He didn't know. He doesn't know.
You know, just because I met Haystack Calhoun when I was a kid, I don't need you beating me up.
All right.
I never studied before.
Okay, so
It's gonna be a great show. I can't wait. Action packed.
You ready?
We're ready.
Greetings and welcome to Pete on the Street. For the next 30 minutes, please join us for a collection of on-location segments and in-studio interviews that'll prove that everyone's got a story. Be sure to tune in for guests bringing important news from our community for everyone from children to seniors. And please join us in saying thank you for your service to our veterans and active duty military and first responders, including police, fire, and EMTs. And join Pete on location throughout Taunton, New England, and around the globe as he checks off destinations from his bucket list. You never know who you'll meet with Pete on the Street. And now you've heard of the POTUS. You've heard of the FLOTUS. Well, here's the POTS. Pete on the Street, your host, Peter Mazzone.
Hello, everyone. My name's The Real Deal, Joel Davis, and I'm back here, Season 11, Episode 2, Pete on the Street. And I have a very, very special guest here. He's a current champion in Showcase Pro Wrestling, tag team champion. He's held many championships across the country, including Puerto Rico. He's one of the best in the independent scene. He's also worked in the major leagues. Punisher, Don Vega. Mr.
Joe,
Vega, good to see you.
Thanks for having you. It's always
man.
good. It's always good to see you. You know, you're one of my old brothers, and it's great to be here.
Oh yeah, man. I feel the same way, brother.
Yes, indeed.
We go back a lot of years, viewing audience, a lot of years, decades. Well, pretty much over a decade. I mean, when actually, it's a good question. When did we cross paths? We had some battles back in the late '90s, right?
The late '90s, yeah. I think we met around '98. We were working for. I first met you working for Tony Rumble.
Oh, the Boston Bad Boy.
When I went in to do his Somerville, Massachusetts tapings there at the old Good Times.
That's when we first met. So,
That's
folks,
when I first met. Yep.
We go back since 1998. That's a long time, and we couldn't pick a better professional wrestler to be the guest because this guy here, he's residing. I believe he resides in the state of Connecticut now, Rhode Island, rather?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island now,
yeah.
But does a lot in this area. So I know everybody's been waiting for this episode, so we're going to get right to it. Who were you trained by, Don Vega? Who were you trained by?
Well, in my beginnings, I had a lot of different hands. One of the first guys to ever show me the ropes, as we say, was Brickhouse Baker, which is another carpenter in the area, you know, like we say in the business. He was my first teacher, per se.
Wow, that's great. And Brickhouse Baker was one of the greats in the early 90s. I remember him coming up. He was built like a brick house when he came up. He used to fly off the top rope. I remember working with him and other greats that passed away since, Super Brad, Steve Bradley.
Yes.
I worked with those guys, also Brickhouse Baker, and God rest his soul, Bad Attitude Bobby Moran, who died a tragic death. Yeah, so I know exactly who he is, and you know he's a good trainer because he's a legit professional wrestler.
Yeah,
so.
He's a legit guy. You know, he's trained a lot of young men and women in the area over the years. But like I said, he was my first teacher. I got, you know, many others along the way. I got to train with Sabana Souza, which was another great veteran from the area. And, you know, Bert Centeno was kind of like a mentor to me, Kowalski guy, you know, so
Yes.
we have all those ties.
Man, you know, when you I see, and I'm just learning this too, viewers. I mean, because you know the thing is, in professional wrestling, it's so fast-paced. Us brothers, because we are brothers, we don't have time to really sit down and really talk. It's just we get to the event, and you know it's fast-paced and it's hectic, and we don't have time to. I'm actually learning today a little bit more about the Punisher Don Vega, also known as the Man they call Vega for many years in professional wrestling. Silvano Souza was a WWF enhancement talent back in the day. And Souza wrestled some of the greats, including Ernie the Cat Ladd and
Yes.
also Hulk Hogan. So, and Bert Centeno was a big star. El Mascarado, one of the best light heavyweights. He had some battles with Abdullah the Butcher and some other greats in the ICW. Bert Centeno, a great trainer too. And that's what happens when you have a great trainer. You get a great wrestler like the Punisher Don Vega. Your debut. When was your debut and who was it against?
Well, my debut, it's a little funny because I debuted against the two midgets, Tiny the Terrible and his brother, Half Nelson. You know, it was one of those things. I was still a kid back then. I was
You're 15 years old?
15 years old, yeah. I was kind of thrown into the mix. You're going to wrestle the midgets tonight. And that was my first match. It was those two guys.
That's crazy, brother. You know, and when you debut, folks, listening audience, and I know there's a ton of pro wrestling fans that tune in to Pete on the Street, and you got to understand, you know, I'm sure they're like sponges. They want to absorb all this. They got to understand, when you get an opportunity for debut, you take it. It doesn't matter if it's midgets or what it is, and that's the opportunity that Don Vega had, and I just learned that too about you today.
Yeah, and that was I'm sure you know Tiny and Half Nelson at the time were very popular. They were brothers. Two African American midgets,
That's
you know,
right.
really strong, legit
Yes.
amateur wrestlers. So their thing was wrestling the bigger guy, you know, both of them against a bigger guy, and that fell into place, and you know, the rest is history.
That's right. I think one's passed away,
Yes,
unfortunately.
yes,
and-
Half Nelson passed away.
Half Nelson, and the other one is it
It's
Doug?
Tiny Doug, yeah.
Tiny Doug.
Yeah,
Yeah, he owes me about $50.
Yeah, I'm
but-
sure he does.
I've seen him pull some stunts, that guy.
Yeah.
I remember one night going to a show, he had a blade this big under
Yeah.
under the seat. That guy's
By the way, if Tiny watches this, I don't owe you any money for that Puerto Rican festival show. 'Cause he's always saying, "Oh, you owe me money," and this and that. But
I'm sure he's going to watch this sooner or later
Yeah,
on social media
yeah,
or on one of
yeah.
the channels. So just so you know, and I've heard you say
Yep.
this before, you don't owe that money from the Puerto Rican festival. You know, and you got another gentleman that's been going down the path with you, and he's been around and got you involved, I believe, in the micro midget wrestling promotion.
Yeah.
A little killer, Victor. This guy here, another great athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, you're smiling when I mention his name, but I remember him going to a lot of the shows supporting you, Vega, back in the day with your dad. God rest his soul. Julio, correct? Your dad?
Yes. Yeah.
That leads me to my next question. Your proudest moment when your dad was in attendance. What was your proudest moment when your dad was there? Like your biggest match that you were so happy your dad got to see, because he always had a smile on his face. He was always at the shows, brother. What was your proudest moment with your dad?
Well, you know, all of my matches, having my dad around, they were all great because I was, you know, he was my biggest supporter, and he was always there, like you said, with me. But towards the end of his life, you know, I got to get the opportunity to go down to WWE and be a part of WrestleMania. And even though my dream was always to be in the ring wrestling in an event of that magnitude, an opportunity came along to be a part of the entrance with Batista. And, you know, my father was sick. He died of cancer. He was very ill. And to me, I could say, even though he wasn't there, I know he was watching. That was the greatest moment for me because I did it for him to see me in that stage, to see me there at WrestleMania. That was, you know, the biggest payday I could ever get doing this.
That's awesome, brother.
So
Yeah.
I would say that to me was the biggest moment that I could give to my father for everything he did for me.
That's right, and he was there, brother. He was there, and he always was smiling. I can remember him sitting at the ringside with you, and you know that, you know, your dad, Julio. He'd always say hi to me too. I always say hello to him, and Victor was there too. Victor was always there, and it was the three of you traveled the circuit together. So he's seen a lot of your career, didn't he? He did.
Yeah, so Victor, you know, we became friends through a cousin of mine's. They used to go to high school together, and he told him, hey, I got a cousin that wrestles. So he introduced me to Victor. I brought Victor in to the NEWA back then, the New England Wrestling Alliance, and I introduced him to the promoter and Dougie and his brother Jason. And the ball got rolling. He started training, and the rest is history. You know, he's been in the business as well ever since then.
Yeah, he's 2003.
No, before that.
Oh,
It was
even before
it was probably in the 90s
late
as well.
90s?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I already had a year in, and then the following year he came in.
What a career. I'm telling you, folks, this man has had a career that you wouldn't believe. I mean, he's been in the ring with some of the greats many times, multiple times. He can't even count how many times he was in the ring looking across against Tony, Mr. USA Atlas in main events across this part of New England Northeast and even in the Mid-South. Now, if we didn't mention Mr. Don Vega, the Punisher Don Vega, and believe me, he's a Punisher. He's been punishing people all across the world. You wouldn't know. I was talking to Walter Sabina here today, and Pete Mozone, sorry, Pete Mozone, before we went on air today, and I was saying that this guy's such a gentleman, such a nice, gentle gentleman. You wouldn't hurt a fly. The bell rings, and he'll punish you. 2023 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Is that correct? The year you got in?
Yes.
How was that for a rush?
It was great. Actually, you know, they had done the induction in 2020, but through COVID, I got pushed back to the point that I thought, you know, okay, I'm in, but I'm never gonna get to see the ceremony, the induction and stuff like that, which would have been a bummer. But at the same time, you know, it's humbling.
It's humbling. So basically, Don Vega was inducted in 2020. He had to wait 3 years to have the induction ceremony, and doing his induction speech is indie pro wrestling superstar who's been around a long time himself, Chris Blackheart, now known as the Boss Chris Blackheart. He did your induction speaking, man. He did a good job, and I'm glad I was there in attendance.
Yes.
I seen you, brother. I was there for you, my man.
Yeah,
right here.
man. Right there,
Love
man.
you, man. You know
Love
that.
you. Love you
And
too,
I'm
man.
very proud of you that you've been able to accomplish so much, and it's not easy, folks, in pro wrestling to get to that level. How many years have you been in professional wrestling today in 2023?
Just this past
2024,
June,
rather.
Just this past June 2024, 28 years, Joe.
28 years, bro.
Been a long time. And when I say 28 years, you know me, I've been active. You know, I've been wrestling. I haven't taken hiatus or time off.
And that's a big difference, folks. Some of these guys, like Vega said, some of these guys that got in and say they debuted and say, I don't know, just give an example, 2005 or 2010, and they debut in 2005, but they're out 3 years and they come back. No, that's a long run right there that this man here has had. Fans, you've been a heel a lot of your career. Now you're a babyface, which is a good guy. It would showcase pro wrestling. Fans, I would like to share with the audience, fans attack. I mean, what's your most dangerous situation you can look back to, Don?
Well, back in the late 90s, you know, kayfabe, as we say in the business, was strong, and people would want to test you when you were a heel wrestler or bad guy. And I had people in different venues run in and jump over the guardrail and go in the ring. I've been in like big festivals where people jump the rail and come in the ring.
You take care of it very quickly, right?
Yeah. You try to get done with it quickly.
Yep.
It's different times now than before, but back then, if you got in the ring, it was free. It was free.
Yes, free for all.
Free for all, pretty much. Yeah.
And don't forget, folks, just so you know, all the other pro wrestlers in the back waiting to see what's going to happen, because look, you bet your bottom, you bet your ass that they're going to help him out. They're going to help this guy out.
It happened in New Bedford where there was a big brawl. You know, some of the guys cleared the locker room because other people decided they wanted to become a part of it, and it didn't turn out too well for those people, unfortunately.
No, I bet it didn't. So fans, stay in your seats if you know any better. You know, we all know in professional wrestling that professional wrestling now it could be rigged a little bit. The outcome could be determined a bit. But what happens in the ring is real, and the egos are real, and these men are real, and these women are real, and the injuries are real, and anger is real. And
the
let me tell you
trading
something.
is real, man. A lot of people just underestimate the stuff that we go through to be able to go in a ring and to be able to perform and put on a show.
Exactly, and like the Punisher just said, folks, we hold back a lot. But listen, someone gets in the ring, we're not going to hold back that clothesline, that punch, or that elbow to your nose. That's all I'm saying.
It's a whole different story, you know. I don't need that person that's jumping in the ring to wrestle the next week. I need you that's in the ring to wrestle. So you know. There's certain things that are done because it is a business, but if you're coming in out of the street, it's a whole different ballgame.
It's all fair game. Quick question for you. I met your nephew a while back, a few years ago. What a gentleman he is. His first name is Julio, and is it Anado?
Adorno, yeah.
Adorno.
Big Who.
Big
Coach Who.
Coach Who. He's a football guy. He's a football coach.
Yeah.
He's also a big technical guy. He's also known as Jay Hollywood.
Yes.
I just got a question about that young man. Is he named after your dad?
Yeah, he's named after his dad that is named after my dad. There was like 4 of them.
Okay, there was 4. That's great.
You know?
Well, I mean, that's great because I got to be good friends with Julio Cruz. He worked for the AWA. I don't know if you remember. He wrestled a lot in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico, all through Julio Cruz. You remember him? AWA. But so that name, he was with the AWA too in New York back in the 90s. Matter of fact, that was a big show that I met Julio Cruz. When you name the name, because when I think of the name Julio, he was a big name in Puerto Rico. But if you looked him up, you'd probably recognize him. And I got to ask you, man, Mike Spada. You worked for Mike Spada for a while. A story about Mike Spada and the Mike Spada voice, please.
Well, Mike, I worked for 10 years.
Explain who he is to the please.
He was a promoter here in the New England region. His brother was Freddie Spada. He was a referee for the WWE, WWF back then. So if you watch a lot of old footage from like both gardens, Madison Square Garden and the Boston Garden, you'll see Fred refereeing.
That's the brother, right? So Mike Spada you worked for.
Mike Spada I worked for. Fred was the promoter before Mike.
Okay.
Mike came in, took over the ranks. Okay. He promoted all throughout New England. Best friends of Dangerous Danny Davis.
Okay.
You know, they both kind of were ring handlers. They used to put up the ring. They learned the business the hard way. You know, you would show up, put up the ring, do anything that you were
big name.
asked.
Big name. Yeah, Spada. Yeah.
So Spada, he brought in big names. He brought in a lot of people. Had the connections with the office at that point in time.
You worked for him quite a bit.
And I worked for him for 10 years. Yeah. He was controversial to a lot of other people. Okay. I'll give you one
story with his voice, please.
I'll give you one that's clean, Okay. He would book guys from, let's say he booked somebody from the Midwest.
Yeah.
He'll take care of the boys that were his guys. My guys, Joe. I'll take care of ya. And then the Midwest guys, they'll come in and do the weekend, do the loop, and he's like, I don't know what to tell you. They were all comps. I can't pay you. I'll get you next time.
They were all comps.
So,
so he made believe that?
Yeah, so we'll have like 1,000 people in the audience, and he would tell these guys that all those seats were comps, that he didn't have.
He
didn't have no money, so he'll get them next time. And next time, he never booked those guys. So that was Mike.
That's Mike's
For some people, he was a shyster, shady. We know a lot of those in the business. But to me, he was always good, too.
That's excellent. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Punisher Todd Vega with a story that, and I'm sure a lot of the indie pro wrestlers, they're going to hear that. They're like, hey, I remember that. So
he owes me money.
He probably owes you money, too. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't the most honest guy sometimes as a promoter.
Yeah, not me. I'm saying the guys are going to watch this and say, oh, that guy's Spada, he owes me money.
Well, that leads up to the name game 10.
Oh, yes.
Here we go, brother.
Go, yes.
The first name, the late, great, one half of a great tag team, the Millennium Killers, Anthony Ruffo.
Oh man, Anthony.
Got goosebumps on that one.
He's the guy that said yes to me when I was a kid as far as training and giving me an opportunity. First guy to ever say yes, give the kid a chance.
He was, so he got some good words.
I love Anthony. God rest his soul, man.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, goosebumps, man.
I know, I got it too when I said his name now. What a great guy. So just so you know, Anthony Ruffo came up. He came up in the 90s. He passed away young. Mm-hmm. He must have had a 15, 16, 17-year career. He was a great tag team with Gino Martino, the Extreme Strongman. And he also ran the UCW, Anthony Ruffo did. And he was referred a lot of times to being somewhat of a look like Abdullah the Butcher. Mm-hmm. He was a big man, but he could move in the ring. He was a nice, sweet guy, though. I remember him going to my sports card shop one time with a big suitcase full of basketball cards. None of it was worth much, but he was trying trying to sell him. He hung around with me.
He was upselling them?
Oh, man, I miss that guy. I mean, I got to know him personally, and God rest his soul, Anthony Rufo. That was my first name. The next name is his tag team partner, Gino Martino, the Extreme Strongman.
Gino Martino, man, that's my guy. You mentioned earlier that most throughout my run, I was a heel. Gino was the first guy to say, I'm gonna make you a babyface. And I said, no, Gino, I'm not doing it. He's like, you are, and you're gonna be over.
So that was a good big break, yeah. And that's great. Whatever you have on these names, and you give me a quick story on. I
Gino's
love
my
the
guy,
stories.
man. He's awesome dude, great guy. And like I said, he was the one that
Beautiful.
first guy that made me work babyface and made it work for me.
Beautiful. So. That's beautiful. The number 3 on the name game 10, Travis Funk.
Travis Funk, another of those UCW guys that I go way back. I worked with Travis many times, and when him and Gary were running UCW, they always gave me a place. So
that's great, man.
One of the good ones.
Another good ones. Yeah, these are the names that I put together in the last couple of weeks when Peter and I and Walter knew that we had Don Vega booked for this. He's very busy. He's been traveling a lot. We were happy to have him, so I've been working on these names. Female pro wrestler, Brittany Brown.
Brittany Brown. Pat and I, we go back from the Sparta days.
Okay.
Many people don't know. Don't kill me,
You
Pat.
dated her?
Next time, she used to date Mike, and
Mike Sparta?
Yes.
Oh, I thought she dated you.
So, no, she dated Mike Spotter, and I met her, and she was always a sweetheart to me. She's a great wrestler in the ring and a great person outside. So,
Beautiful.
Shout out to her.
Shout out to her. I mean, these names, just giving you different names, Punisher.
Yeah, no.
Just trying to move them
I love
around.
it. I love it.
Tag team partner champion, Alex Rated. If I pronounce the name correctly.
Yeah, Alex Rated, yeah. Alex, I met through Zach the Ref. Zach the Ref sent me a message and said, hey, I work this show in South Coast of Massachusetts. I met this kid that worked for Carlos Colon. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, I'll send you his info.
Oh, you worked out there for Carlos. Wow.
So, yeah.
WWC, World Wrestling Council?
Yes. So I saw his stuff, and I contacted him, and I said, hey, you want to come up? And he's like, yeah, man, I would love the opportunity. And I booked him against me because I wanted to test him out.
That's a great story.
So we had that match, and ever since we've been cool.
That's great. I met him briefly, and I think he's such a great guy. I just want to mention before we continue with the name game, because the 30 minutes really don't cover Don Vega's career.
Yeah.
It covers maybe 2 or 3%. But Showcase Pro Wrestling's coming up, and that's going to be on Friday night, October 11th, in Ingle Street, right here in Taunton. Right? You're returning. Showcase is returning?
I'll be here at the BFW. We've been coming back to Taunton for many years.
Many years.
At the BFW. So
shout out to your fans that come out.
Shout out to everybody in Taunton. I love coming to Taunton. It's always a hot crowd, and I love coming to Taunton. They coming here for years, even other promotions. Back in the Roseland ballroom. I don't know if it's still down there.
The ballroom, yeah. So you just love Taunton in general,
Yes.
but Ingle Street's a mainstay for Showcase Pro Wrestling. And not to get into it, but my good friend Johnny Rotten got attacked at the last show here in Ingle Street.
I saw that.
I had just about enough. I was sitting at second row, and as you can see in the footage, the raw footage, you can see these two heels, these two bad guys, AZ, the consistent one, and Michael Michelson.
Yes.
Man, these guys are kicking him.
I call him the lackey.
Okay, well, they were kicking Johnny Rotten. He was trying to do a comedy set. They kicked him when he was down. They were using the heel, which really is very effective with the heel, and the punches and the big knee, the big chops. Guys, that's not the right thing to do. We're not going to get into it right now, but I'm sure you're not happy with that either.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Get into the next name, Chris Blackheart, the boss.
Chris Blackheart. He's Puerto Rican by now. That's kind of like my brother, Blackheart and I got off in a rough start because Blackheart was clumsy, and I said that before. I'm sorry, Chris, but I used to hate wrestling against Chris Blackheart.
And you guys are a team, man, like in business too.
Yeah, they put us together.
You tagged up. You're a great team.
They put us together, and I thought they were punishing me. No pun intended. I'm like, why? He's like, oh, it'll be good. And then, I got to meet Chris Island, the person. We had a lot of things in common. And the rest is history. We've been friends over 25 years.
I think that's awesome. And Chris Blackheart and Punishing Don Vega were the former UCW Tag Team Champions. The next name in the name game, James Allen.
James Allen, Jimmy, another guy that gave me opportunities in New World Wrestling. I was his champion back in the day. Me and James, we started together. He had a little bit more experience than I did, I believe a year or a year and a half before I started.
Yeah.
But we met way back from NEWA.
Good memories then, right?
Yes,
Good memories.
yes.
We're coming down a few minutes in the show. I want to get these last three names in our last segment. So let's get to the next name. The late, great, God rest his soul, the Boston bad boy, Tony Rumble.
Tony Rumble, he's responsible for Don Vega because
That's right. I heard this story.
the name came from Tony. A lot of people reflect back on Savio because our ties. Yeah, Tony said, "Hey, you got to look like D'Lo Brown and Savio Vega. I want to move you up on the ranks here.
That's great.
You need to have a name." I was just the Punisher at the time.
Yeah.
He's like, "We're gonna call you Don the Punisher Vega."
And you
I was,
kept it, and you got famous with that name.
I
That's
kept
great.
it, and yeah.
Yeah, Rumble was one of the best, wasn't
Yeah.
he? Okay, the next name, Tony Atlas, Mr. USA.
Tony was college for me in the business, university, because he showed me how to listen to the people, how to slow down, and how to make everything that we do mean something in the ring.
Yeah, man, you can't look. Tony Atlas, one half of the WWF champions. Him and Rocky Johnson beat the late, great Wild Samoans Offer and Seeker on television. They were the first African-American tag team champions, Tony Atlas and Soul Man Rocky Johnson, who's the father of The Rock. The last name on the name game 10, promoter Steve Ricard.
Steve Ricard, Stevie was my guy also. You know, I knew Steve from the Tony Rumble days when he used to videotape the shows. That's how I met Steve.
That's right.
I met Steve there, and we became friends. We were both close in age, and you know, he became a promoter, and he used me the best of the ability that he could use me. I worked a lot of names
That's
under
beautiful.
Top Rope Promotions, so you know, Steve
You got a lot
was-
of great words for a lot, and you know, and everyone that's going to be viewing this, they're going to be happy, I'm sure, to hear all the good words you have. Again, Punisher Don Vega, I'm telling you, I'm the real deal Joel Davis, and I'm telling you, I'm a reference for this guy. He is one of the most gentleman-like professional wrestlers I have met. I broke in 1991, so I've met a lot in the business, believe me. And this guy here ranks in the top 5, and he's become very, very close friend of mine. So I'm so glad we have him here. And the last segment before we go is Pete on the Street Retreat. We call it Pete on the Street Retreat to refer to my friend, my brother from another mother, Pete Mozone, who I hear wheeling on over
Yep,
here.
he's wheeling
Pete
on.
on the Street Retreat.
I got to sit in on this.
Okay, come on in.
All right.
Pete on the Street Retreat. The question is, when did you have to get out
There
of
he is.
somewhere?
We got.
There we are.
There we
Hey.
When did you have to get out of somewhere, Vega, really quick? Pete on the Street Retreat means get out of there. Before we get out of here.
Okay, so going back to the 90s, I was at a campground. We ran a show and I was a heel, and somebody jumped in over the guardrail. I think I punched them. So now they put me in a golf cart. People are throwing rocks and different stuff at me, and I'm like, step on it, dude.
Step on it. Step on it. And we're about to step on it here.
Yeah.
And we got about 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Vega, thanks a lot, brother.
Joe,
hey, man,
I
great.
love you, brother.
I love
Yes.
you too.
Pete,
Great show.
Thank you very much.
Don, love you, man.
Yeah.
And thanks for not pulling a Dropkick Murphy.
I
on
got
me, brother.
excited. I'm sorry.
But,
you know,
but hey,
we broke that.
I got to thank my brother Joel. When you first came on my show, you gave me an autographed picture of yourself in the ring. Now I've got
said you put it in the bathroom.
No, I've got an autographed picture of us
wow.
together.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to hang that up in your bathroom. So,
Oh,
so-
yeah, I'll put that in my bathroom.
yeah,
man.
there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock somewhere.
yes, indeed. There you have it.
Thank you for watching Pete on the Street. This program is produced by Peter G. Pete on the Street Mazzone, who is solely responsible for its content. Views and opinions expressed in the show are solely those of Mr. Mazzone and his guests and do not reflect the views and opinions of TCAM TV, its management, or directors. Your comments about the show are welcome, or if you have an interesting story and would like to be considered for a future show, please reach out to Pete at peter.mazzone@verizon.net or like us at facebook.com/pgmazzone. Production coordinator is Walter Sabina. I'm Alicia Koulis, director of Pete on the Street. Thanks to TCAM TV and our guests for making the show possible.